I took a break. Last week, I didn't do hardly any video. But this week, I'm going to get started again, and I just felt like I needed to come out here to the garden, relax for a minute, and I thought I would just talk to you like a friend. This one's for you. This is just a conversation between you and I. Luke's out here watering the garden, and we're just going to walk around the garden and see how things are going, because quite honestly, the garden's looking pretty nice. I'm sitting right in front of the cold frame box that I tried to sprout peppers and tomatoes in this year. Some of the things that you've already seen are the moringas, but I have a few surprises over here. I'm very excited about my moringa trees. They are looking beautiful. They're sitting in water right now that needs dumped out, but the trees themselves are doing great. One of them has already been planted out on the farm. These other 5, they're sitting here waiting for me to figure out where to put them. Yesterday I was out in the garden having a little fun, and I decided that I would go ahead and cut some of the suckers off the bottom of the tomatoes and just go ahead and try to pot those up, see if I can get a few more tomato plants. I did a video last year or 2 years ago about how to do that, but real simple, cutting it off, starting those. This is a pomegranate tree that I got started last season, and it took, which is a great thing because the 2 pomegranate trees that I had in pots died. Last winter was just too hard on them and they didn't make it. Over here I have some seeds that I started. It's Confederate Rose. I think it's Confederate Rose tree. I'm not sure exactly what those will turn out to be like, but I got 6, I think 7 of those. No, 8, 9 of those. So maybe I'll get a few of those to make it all the way to maturity, and we'll see what those look like. And I started some of my potato slips, or sweet potato vine slips. So we have several of those started here. Hopefully we'll have a nice harvest of sweet potatoes in the grow bags again this year. One of the things that I really love watching in the garden, besides the ducks playing out in the swale, is this blackberry bush that has been growing in this container here in the front of my garden right by the entrance for a few years now. This year it is absolutely loaded with blackberries, but it has also been a lot of fun to watch the bees come out and pollinate this. Check this out, how many berries are coming out. I mean, this thing was just loaded with flowers, and now it's going to have a bunch of blackberries on it. Hopefully I can get a few of them before the birds do. But it's been a lot of fun to watch this plant grow. It's the same plant that I've taken a lot of cuttings from to start other blackberry plants to plant elsewhere on the farm. Even right here in the bottom you can see I could take this one out. It's sending up a new plant, so I could just dig that out, get a little bit of roots, and plant that somewhere else. I'm just going to take you around from bed to bed and give you an idea of what's planted and what's growing. Over here in this first bed, I got my mint here in a 5-gallon bucket. That's really fun to rub my fingers through and then smell my hands. It's just a wonderful plant, nice fragrance. Over here are some green beans. These are the Kentucky Blue, I think they're called. They have lots of little flowers starting. I'm going to have some nice green beans on there. On the back I have 1, 2, 3, 4 tomatoes. On down at the end of this bed I have a couple more green beans and a couple of pepper plants. The pepper plants have been really slow growing so far, but hey, it's only April. I can't say too much. This is one radish plant that grew up, and I let it get way too big. I'm hoping it flowers. I'd like to see some radish flowers. It was a really nice compliment. Last night I was standing out here with my wife, and she was looking at the garden, and she was saying, you know, how impressed she was that there's actually something going on in the garden. She was looking at it a lot during the winter, wondering when anything is going to grow. Here in Texas, even though in the winter it feels like things should be growing, the weather is still kind of too up and down to have a whole lot going on. So it was kind of barren most of the winter. But right now with the rain and the sun coming out, there's a lot growing and it's really fun to watch. This bed over here has my 3 Mexican mint marigolds, and those are absolutely wonderful to smell as well. Someone who was visiting the farm recently said that her mom used to make tea out of this, so I'm going to try that. The carrots are just doing beautifully. I am so impressed with the growth of the carrots in the last few weeks. 2 peppers on this end with 2 tomatoes, green beans, 2 more peppers, and the Apios Americano. That Apios Americana is really fun to watch grow up this trellis. The flowers on this, hopefully I can get a good shot of the flowers later this year, are just absolutely stunning. They're almost like mini orchids. Let's go on back here and I'll show you that the onions, they're doing beautifully. They're getting really nice and tall. Some of them are getting very healthy looking bulbs on those. Those will be a lot of fun to harvest coming real soon. And the asparagus has grown up. Now that it's been a few years out here in the asparagus bed, every time I see one asparagus get a little, about the size of a pencil, a little bigger, I break it off and eat it right here in the garden. It turns out I really like raw asparagus. This garden bed over here is kind of empty. It only has 4 tomato plants. This whole side really could be growing something else. I just haven't figured out what to put there yet. The white cucumbers, however, growing up on this trellis are just really, uh-oh, looks like I had a chicken get in here. Start poking the cucumbers. That one can be harvested. They don't get much bigger than that. The white cucumbers, those seeds were given to me by a friend, a viewer, and they have been a lot of fun to grow. They're very fast growers and a lot of flowers. It looks like they're going to be prolific cucumber producers. And the flavor is really good too. Right on the other side over here are still a bunch of blackberry plants that I need to get planted out on the farm. You can see lots of berries and lots of flowers. Another place where the bees like to hang out. On this side here we have a few more of the white cucumber plants. Now here's an interesting story about the white cucumbers. You remember earlier on in the season when I had cucumbers that were growing 2 plants per seed starting cell and I was dividing them in the water? Well, that worked out, but it's very interesting to see that those that I divided in the water on the other side are not as tall and not as full as those that I did not divide in the water. I don't know if it's just because this is a better side, better soil, or if that method actually did stunt their growth a little bit. Looks like I'm going to be feeding chickens a lot of cucumbers. This is another bed that I haven't had an idea of what to do yet this year. This is where all the hot peppers were last year, and quite honestly, I thought those hot peppers were going to last through the winter and give me another season, but since they all died and this bed was really kind of left unplanned, so I'll probably plant okra or something like that here, but I just haven't quite decided yet. On up over here we have the 2 tomatoes on this end. They are doing really well. This is about as high as my hips. And a few potatoes. I didn't get a lot of potatoes planted this year, but we have 2 bags of potatoes. And this is a small grape plant, small blackberry over there. And then some more sweet potatoes. In the 5-gallon pots right here I have more of the kaya plants. Most of the kaya plants that were planted out in the ground, the one in the garden and several of the others that were planted out around the farm, the winter killed them. I only have one that I can tell that's out on the farm up by the orchard that came back. It was nice to have a few of the kaya plants in the 5-gallon buckets that overwintered in the greenhouse. That gave me an opportunity to get them out here, get them started, and I'll plant more in the garden and around the farm. Hopefully we won't have a winter that kills them like we did last. Now right over here, I just turned around so the perspective might look a little weird, but right over here next to the greenhouse, I have these fig trees that have been growing up, and I have a lot of really nice growth on the fig trees, and I'll show you that, but I'm actually more excited to show you this one thing. Think back a couple months ago when I was expressing how big of a rat problem I had in the garden before I had the cats come back out here to help control the rats, and they were eating everything. They were eating all of my seedlings and many other things that were being taken out by the rats. One of the things that really disappointed me was that they were eating the moringa trees. Well, take a look at my moringa trees now. This is where the rats chewed them off, and this is where it's growing back. This one's looking really, really nice, and this one is just now starting to come back over here. So it's really cool to have both of those trees that I thought were lost growing back. Right up next to the greenhouse here are the lemon trees and fig trees. This lemon tree died. Oh look, we got a nice little spider hanging there. This lemon tree died way back in the winter. You can see a lot of dead here, but it's starting to grow back. I don't expect lemons this year, but it's nice to see the tree growing back. Down in here you can see, actually right here, that is about as high as my chin. That's the tallest fig tree that I have right now, and there's a lot of really nice growth going on. Lots of new growth that's happened only in the last few weeks. I'm working on a plan right now to figure out where to get these fig trees planted, because they're not going to like being in these pots forever. Down here by the entrance of the greenhouse was my little Rubbermaid container experiment. I have a few carrots growing up in there, some lettuce, and I did have some other things, but I think most of it's gone now. It's mostly just carrots and lettuce. This is one of the baby kaya plants that I just planted, and I just cut one of the branches off of the plants that were in the 5-gallon buckets and transplanted it right here. Right next to the kaya are 2 horseradish plants. Those were given to me by a friend. I have plans of introducing you to that friend pretty soon, so be looking for that. Down here on the other end of the greenhouse, we have Luke's famous little garden here, but before we get in there, I want to show you a few things growing right up next to the back of the greenhouse. Oh, the oregano is coming in beautifully, and it smells wonderful. It's kind of taken over this patch, which I'm very happy about. But there's another little plant in here that some of you have shown interest in, and I want to show it to you. This right here, that is the young plant and leaf of a yam. This is not a sweet potato, this is a yam. You can see a few more coming up over here, and another one here. It won't be long before those will grow up and cover this rebar trellis right here. I've never actually harvested a yam from this, but it's fun to let it grow back every year and just cover this trellis and be something decorative in the garden. Alright, so now into Luke's famous little garden here. It is growing beautifully, and he's very happy to come out here and water the garden. I have that wire cage wrapped around it to keep the chickens and cats out of it. But you can see here the squash is already developing a few baby squash. Looks like we have 2 of them in there. And we got another squash over here, different kind, with several baby squash. And then this is a pepper plant here on the corner. We got several flowers on there. The pepper plant itself is looking really nice. There's a cucumber plant back here growing up the trellis. Growing up nicely, that's about as high as my belt. And then the strawberries on the tower, the little tiny ceramic tower here. We've harvested a few strawberries off of that. And then the tomato. This tomato is growing up. The tomato is growing really tall, trying to get up above everything else, which is fine. And it's already producing tomatoes. We haven't planted the mailbox on the back of Luke's garden yet. That's coming soon. That's kind of it. Well, there's a few other things. Right in the center of the garden, the centerpiece is this brick little container, and has this salvage piece of metal that we got off of somebody's trash, and I decided it would be a nice centerpiece in the garden. Well, right now it has Apios americana growing up on it, and it is just growing up really tall. Well, when that fills out, it's going to be really pretty. I got a few aloe around the bottom, but mostly that's just there for decoration with the Apios americana. Over on the fence line, there's a lot of weeds and things that we struggle with, but we also have grapes. The grapes have been attacked a little bit by goats and horses that can reach over the fence. But this one over here seems to be attacked less. Maybe they like this flavor a little less than the other one. But this plant here is going to grow up, it looks like, and be a really nice grape plant. Well, with the exception of the roses growing up right here by the gate, that's just about it in the garden. It has been wonderful taking you around the garden today. A lot of fun to just relax and talk to you, giving me an opportunity to get back into the swing of thing, recording videos so that you can join my journey. Thank you so much for joining me here in the garden. I'll talk to you soon.